Good evening, everyone. Kalpesh. Mute. I think Kalpesh, you're mute.
Okay, we will wait for another 1 or 2 minutes, then we will start. Sounds good, Sean?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just looking at the questions.
Okay. I think we are good. We should start because we have limited time. Yeah, let's start. Hello and welcome, Sean, on FHH. Hope you are staying healthy and well.
Yes, thanks for having me. I am. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really appreciated you joining us on Friday evening, despite being having a 2.5 hours of time zone difference.
Yeah, so I actually work for Amazon US. I'm currently staying in Singapore, but so my workday is about to start. So it's 9 a.m. over there. So that's okay for me. This is actually a good time.
Cool. So I will just give you quick intro to our audience, but before that, I will tell you about the FHS. So front end happy hours. So we started the front end happy hours as a casual discussion because we wanted to replicate those moments when we were in office. We used to discuss about the front end topics and all that. So what started as a casual now turned into group of nerds discussing about the front end topics and the customer experience. So this time what we have decided to go outside India and reach out to the talent so that we can have a good discussion here. So this time we went outside India and you are our first international guest joining from Singapore.
Whoa.
So we started this trend now. So that's about the front end happy hours. And the people, we have a Sean with us. Sean is currently working with AWS. He is in AWS Amplified team. He recently joined Amazon. And before that, Sean was working with Netlify, a company which is very popular for the static site deployments and much more. And today's our topic is around the static site deployments and its role in single page application era. So this is our topic, and Sean is a pretty popular tech person on Twitter. He has more than 20,000 followers. I believe, Sean, you have a deep understanding of productivity and the career guidance, because you have recently launched your book on career uh, advancement. So, and we will share the work links of Sean's work and the social media handle, so you can follow him, you can get update from him. So over to you, Sean. We would like to hear more about you.
I think that was a really good intro, and I don't know how to I don't know how to top that. I think something I want to understand is, we have both non-technical and technical audience here, right? So I think Kalpesh, you are a developer, but maybe some of the people joining may not be developers.
Yes.
But I can just fill in a bit of the gaps. I'm originally from Singapore. I was in finance, in a finance career before I switched to tech. So I spent 6 years in investment banking and hedge funds, and basically burned out because it's a very high stress job. And then decided that I was learning to code on the side and decided to go full time on coding. And that was around in 2017. And I went through a whole sort of self-taught boot camp, self-taught for 6 months and then boot camp. And then, and basically just, made my way up in terms of front-end development and serverless development. And eventually landed myself as a, senior developer advocate in AWS in the US. I have visited India a couple times, mostly Delhi. But also I spoke at a GraphQL conference in Bangalore, and that's it. I wish I spent more time in India, but it's a very, very big place. So I also can't visit everywhere. But it was a really good time. Yeah. So one of my old companies, we had a development office in New Delhi. So I spent like 2 months in Delhi.
Oh. Okay, we all the people here joined us mostly from Bangalore and Amazon Payments team.
Okay.
The audience is mix of tech people, non-tech people, even maybe someone from finance also. But it is a pretty inspiring story that you have shifted your career from a finance background to a developer, and now you are working as a senior developer in AWS. So yeah, pretty exciting and inspiring for us. Yeah. So we will begin the session. Mars, the floor is yours. I will go off video and you and Sean can begin the session.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Sean. Thanks a lot for joining again. So, today's topic is static site generators and static sites in general, and how they play with the single page applications that we have today. So, yeah. For everybody's sake, so let's start from the beginning. Okay. When do you consider a site to be static, and when do you say it's dynamic, etc.?
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm very used to speaking to developers, so this will be my first time trying to explain to a broader audience. But I'll try to make it useful for both. So basically, websites are made with HTML. And that has been the case since the beginning. The interesting things happen when you can generate HTML using JavaScript. So you ship HTML and JavaScript and use the JavaScript to generate even more HTML. So then you have interactive websites that you can click around and it will respond to your actions without reloading the site to make another new page, right? So you don't have to refresh the whole page. You can just click on a button, for example, and then it will generate some new parts of HTML and just insert it right there. So that makes it for a nicer, faster experience, and that's what we call dynamic site. So a purely static site is just HTML that has been pre-generated, and then a dynamic site is something that is more interactive using JavaScript.
So yeah, it's fair to say that static sites have been there for long. For example, the first website that I know of is basically a static site, nothing but plain HTML content, where the content is stored in terms of files, and that file is transferred to the client side. And
yes.
Then we evolved into something called multipage applications, where you have server rendering the content and sending it down to us. So why do you think we evolved into having multi-page applications to single-page applications? What was the requirement, and what change do you think led to this?
Yeah, basically we wanted some interactivity, right? We want to put some database behind the website. So let's say you have an internet forum, and you can comment and leave comments, and it will show up for other people in the future. It's too much of a, I guess I'll say that, like, it's too much of a hassle to always regenerate the site each and every time for every single comment. So it might be better just to pull on request, and so like, for example, you'll be running like a WordPress server or like a PHP, just other PHP server, because that's pretty much the oldest, most dominant language. But there's also others like Perl and whatever, and you would generate all these based on requests. So like anytime a visitor comes to your site, they'll generate the full page, including all the new comments, and then serve it to you. So these are multi-page applications, and that's kind of different from the traditional static website, which it's static in a different way. It's static in a sense that it still doesn't use JavaScript on the front end for interactivity, but it's dynamic. It's static in the sense that it's generated HTML from the server and it's sent to the client, and it doesn't really have any interactivity there. So I think that's what some people call multi-page applications. I want to be clear. I've never actually written a multi-page applications because by the time I joined web development, everything was all single-page applications.
True. I think the boom happened around 2010 when Angular was launched, and then we had a lot of single page applications where you load pages and you go to the next page without the whole page refreshing. But why do you think even after getting single page applications, we are still looking back at static sites? So first we had static sites with pure HTML served from the server and comes to the scene. Then we had dynamic sites where content was rendered in the server and then the HTML was sent to the client. And then we had single page applications where content is generated on the client side using JavaScript. And then, but we are again looking at static sites for performance or whatever reason. Why do you think we are coming back all the way back to static sites?
Yeah, so there's no we. I think it's a bad. It's a misleading message to say that we're all just going in one circle for no reason. That's not the case. The vast majority of people and sites are still on WordPress, right? Like WordPress supports like 38% of the web, and that number is still going up. And then there's single page apps, and then those are also growing. So it's just like all these categories are all growing at once, because the internet is just growing exponentially, and all these sections are growing into different use cases which people are exploring. So I would say that it's so that's the first thing. Like I'll say that all of these use cases, all these different technologies and architectures have growing use cases, and there's still valid reasons for them to be there. I think more recently why static sites have become cool again is because of sort of like a re-emergence of static site generator technology that's enabled by modern JavaScript frameworks like React that help you server-side render, and then on the client side they'll hydrate into a single-page app, and then from there you can do the client-side navigation. So this really gets to the heart of like why we move from multi-page dynamic apps into single-page apps in the first place, because client-side navigation was always like a nicer user experience, in terms of navigation, because you don't have to do a full-page reload, which is very janky and loses some opportunity, for example, for page transitions and all that. So the downside is the performance of the big JavaScript bundle, right? And so we had this trade-off, like either you do this multi-page application where you have the full page reload, but it's faster because there's no big JavaScript bundle, or you have the big JavaScript bundle, but you have the nice client-side navigation afterwards. And this trade-off was there basically until we had the modern frameworks that can actually do both. And that's why sort of the second generation of static sites have been really taking off, because all these static sites, all these JavaScript frameworks enable that.
True. So basically, just to sum it up, we had server-side rendered pages before, and then what we did was due to performance improvement from single page applications, we did isomorphic renderings. Some pages are rendered on the server, some are rendered on the client. And in some places, we also see pages coming in as static, in the sense the server there is no server side generation, but in terms of just like Gatsby sides that we're talking about, at build time we are generating the HTML files and contents that are ready and are served at the runtime. So by this, there are some performance benefit. Can you talk more about on that sense?
In terms of, sorry, which performance wins are we talking about?
Basically, so what happens during static sites like this? There is a performance win in terms of time to first byte. For example, when this first request goes to the server, since we are not generating at runtime, so as we immediately get the response for static contents, just like any Gatsby blog or Gatsby site.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So the performance win is basically that you don't need a running server anymore, and therefore, we used to have cases where we'll call it like slash dotting or a hug of death. For example, when sorry, I have a call. So for example, whenever there's like a huge spike in traffic, your site can go down because you didn't scale your server enough. Your server might have too many connections, or just like too much of a load. So that is not desirable, and that's expensive to handle. And sometimes you want to pre-provision, and then it's very messy. So the better case is to pre-generate all these files, right, as static files, serve them out as content on content delivery networks, so that all these files are living on the server closest to your customer. So like, I'm in Singapore, I can generate a file that gets served from India to Indian visitors, and that's a much faster connection, and that can never go down. So it's cheaper and it's faster, and it's also a little bit more secure because there's no running server to penetrate. So hackers cannot even get in because it's just a static file that's being served from the CDN. So all these are the typical benefits from going JAMstack, which is the JavaScript API. It's a markup language that has evolved to describe this terminology.
Yeah, true. So I definitely have questions around JAMstack, we actually want to hear it from you, because since Netlify is the one that coined the term JAMstack. Yeah. So before that, I just wanted to check on what is your thoughts on the current static site generators like Gatsby and Next? What is your experience around it, and what is your preferred static site generator in 2020?
Yeah, I have a decent experience with both of them, and I've used others as well, like 11T, Jekyll, Nuxt. There's a lot of static site generators. If you go to staticgen.com, you see I think something like 400 to 500 generators out there. So the experience is really good. Basically, Next.js and Gatsby are the two predominant React static site generators, and React is the predominant JavaScript framework. So I think a lot of people are very interested in those two. Basically, the way they differ is that Next.js has a hybrid mode. Basically, it can run partially on a server, partially serverless, or partially static, whereas Gatsby is all static. That's one difference. And then the other big difference is that Next.js is a little it's a very small API surface area, so it only takes care of the rendering. Everything else you have to do with your own by hooking into their data fetching hooks. Whereas for Gatsby, they opt for a bigger community, so you see 1,000 different plugins that might pull in all sorts of data from like YouTube, Cloudinary, Google Sheets, whatever. All data sources can be pulled in. They use GraphQLs to organize all that data, and you can use that data anywhere in your pages. So it's much easier to organize and pull in your data from any arbitrary data source. That is a more sort of community-led approach, which is good and bad. Good in the sense that a growing community can actually feed upon itself, and everyone helps each other out, and that's very nice. Bad in the sense that the quality is very inconsistent. Sometimes there's really good plugins, and sometimes there's not so good plugins, and it's hard to tell. I personally used to use Gatsby, and I think the complexity from the GraphQL abstraction is something that I don't really see the benefit of. So I now actually prefer Next.js because Next.js is a bit simpler in it tries to do less, and that's something that I've grown to appreciate.
So true. I think some of the popular, one of the popular website, the React.js documentation is done in Gatsby. So I think that's, and similarly, Marvel.com is made with Next. So I think both are equally popular. Next is gaining momentum this year. So now we just wanted to know, okay, what is your website made of? Which generator?
I made my own static site generator.
Okay. Okay.
It's called SSG, and it's built on Svelte. Svelte is an up-and-coming JavaScript framework that's alternative to React. And I like it basically because it's much lighter. My previous site used to be on Gatsby, and I think it served something like 200 kilobytes of JavaScript for every page load. And when I moved it to Svelte, it dropped down to 9. So there's a lot of basically like there's a sentiment out there that using React to build websites is kind of the wrong tool. React is best used for cross-platform apps. And if you're not building an app and you're just building a blog, then you actually don't need a lot of the stuff that's included inside of React. And so maybe you shouldn't use that as your base. So that's what I'm trying to explore right now is like, can I use something that's much lighter weight, that is more responsible, especially for people with expensive data connections.
Got it. So coming to the platform, I mean, the hosting services. So what now, and I know you're working for AWS, but still, what's your preferred hosting services at the moment?
I know I'm supposed to say Amplify, right? Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like they're all very similar, and it's kind of like everybody needs to have this baseline behavior, which Amplify has. Netlify definitely is like the leader in that space. So Amplify is kind of like 2 or 3 years behind, I'd say. And then there's Vercel, which is also the company that runs Next.js. And then there's some smaller players like Begin.com. So for example, I'm pretty interested in all these things. Like GitHub Pages is also a host. You can host your pages on GitHub, and that's a static site host. I think where it comes to really define it yourself, it's really the developer experience around deploying, rolling back, connecting custom domains, connecting subdomains, hooking up deploy previews. So like every time someone does a PR or to update your site, you can have a preview of what the site's going to look like before you merge it in, and that's a very nice workflow that a lot of open source developers really like. And yeah, I mean, and then for me, the other thing that makes this a lot more interesting, which, for example, Netlify has serverless functions. So a lot of the times, the problems that come in when you do a static site generator like this is you don't have a running server, but sometimes you need to hide API secrets in a server somewhere. And the solution for that is you hide it inside of a serverless function. So you can proxy your call out to, let's say you're using a Google Maps API inside of your site. You don't have to stand up a running server. You can just have a serverless function that does the proxy for you by storing that token in there. And then once you have a serverless function, which is it takes care of computing, then you might want to have some extra bits of storage, right? Like a database functionality. And a lot of times, that you might want to hook that up together with like Airtable or Google Sheets or some other, dedicated database like FaunaDB. That's the Netlify approach. I think what AWS is trying to do is give you the full set of services that you'll need. So AWS gives you, all the production ready stuff like DynamoDB, Aurora, SQL, and it just gives you, that full set that's very battle tested. So I think something that, is being explored in the space is how much of a stack do people need to build, a modern JAMstack site.
Got it. So since you're running short of time, I would like to know more about JAMstack, like how it plays with static site generators.
The moment you use a static site generator, you're basically JAMstack. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to understand whether that means that JavaScript APIs and markup, what it stands for. Does the markup really stand for pre-rendered markup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it. For people who want to learn more about this, like there's a we are not really doing justice to why now. Why is it so popular? Why is there so much investment interest? Why are developers so interested in it? So I always talk about it as the confluence of 5 trends. I don't even remember what the trends are. Something like Git workflow is becoming, 10 years ago, Git wasn't that popular. We're still using like Subversion or maybe not even using version control. But the idea that we'll commit everything to Git and like we'll version control our changes and each hash of a version of our site should have a corresponding deployment so that we can roll back changes very quickly. Those are great improvements on the way that we deploy sites. We used to just roll out new changes, and then if something screwed up, we didn't have an option. We have to go fix the bug. But now we can just roll it back, and that's great, right? So that's Git. And then there's build tools. JavaScript build tools have grown a lot as well, including and then there's the new modern generation of static site generators. There's the proliferation of CDNs, and then there's the API economy where basically everything is kind of as a service for you. Like if you want payments as a service, there's Stripe. If you want email or SMS as a service, there's Twilio. There's all these different little APIs that you can chain together to make a complete app or site, and that's a much different value proposition than from 10 years ago, where you had to hand build all this stuff. So something that probably used to take you 3 to 6 months, you can probably put together in a week if you know the right tooling. And that's basically what is very exciting for the individual developer, that they can do so much with so little.
Got it. I think we've got a few questions from the audience, so I think it's the right time to take it right now.
Yeah, I'm also gonna link my talk on this. It's called Rise of JAMstack, and I give more of a background behind, why all these things are coming together at the same time. So I'll link my talk.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Handing over to Kalpesh for the questions from the audience.
So while we wait, I'm also, please don't use my static site generator because I haven't finished it yet. But my static site generator is called SSG. I managed to squat on the name on npm, so it's called SSG.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing.
I think it's Kalpesh. Are you there?
Okay, my bad. I was on mute. Okay, we have quite a lot of questions. Someone is asking like, what is your current role in AWS? What do you do day to day on your job?
Yeah. So my current role is senior developer advocate. I help to basically raise awareness and have a two-way dialogue with developers who are using our platform. So AWS Amplify is the service that helps basically front-end developers to onboard onto AWS in general and get very productive. Something that's actually very interesting is that even people who already know AWS are finding us quite useful to be more productive with existing services that they already know. Like even if you know AWS well, you can benefit from using Amplify because it just basically bakes in a lot of good practice into a single CLI, and I think that's very interesting. I'm only 2 months into this job, so I don't really know everything yet. Like yesterday we just had a 2-day conference. It's called Amplify Days, where we were showing off some of the customer stories and how like for example we had one large global sort of gym chain that had to shut down because of COVID, right? And because of Amplify, they were able to create a mobile app and pivot to a video fitness service in 3 weeks. and they're serving like a million people around the world, and it's a pretty crazy. I'm frankly quite amazed by that. Me personally, I think my value add is going to be like try to convey help front-end developers adopt AWS Amplify, listen to their problems, and also report it back to the product engineers, because I don't work directly on their products, but I definitely give a lot of user feedback, and it's partially use my market knowledge or like knowledge of competitors, because I came from Netlify, and I'm very, very heavily involved in the front end dev space, and try to give the product engineers that input that they can go and make great products with. That's basically it.
Okay. Though you are only 12 months in Amazon, but we know that Gerard and the Nadir, you are working with them.
Yeah, it's a dream job for sure. Have you spoken with him before?
Oh, Gerard, yes, I'm connected with. Before we were in Amazon, I was connected with Gerard.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's a great team. It's still growing even more, and I hope to do more speaking and writing. Basically, we also do a lot of content marketing. Developers don't like to be sold to by a marketing department. They like to be sold to by other developers. So I have to I have to just show by example and show that a lot of these use cases are possible now without a huge team. And I think that's a very interesting thing. I think it's a new direction for Amazon in general. I think, as far as I can tell, we are the first fully open source team at AWS. Like everything that we do is on GitHub. That's unusual.
So on similar question, Sean, we have which AWS service do you use on daily basis?
Which what service?
AWS services.
Oh, so Amplify is a wrapper around a lot of different things, right? So API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, Route 53. I can't really think of what else. SES a little bit for like email stuff, and I guess CloudWatch, for monitoring and all that. So very basic stuff. Like I used to have some EC2 stuff, but I basically wound it down because I don't really need it anymore. Like a lot of what Amplify is essentially the best of serverless technologies for AWS, and AWS has a lot of server full technology that's really great, right? Like ECS and EC2 and all the other stuff like Elastic Beanstalk, whatever. And those are things that I will never touch because those are the server full side of things. But I look at them and I'm kind of envious because they're also working on a lot of cool stuff. But I mostly use the serverless side of things.
Okay, cool. We have another question. Like someone is asking, we are fast moving towards a PWA era for a company like Amazon, where there are a lot of static set of information and in fact some amount of dynamic pages we have. So how do you think we should approach to solve for static site driven dynamic features? So for Amazon, if we want to adapt those things, so how should we approach?
Yeah, I don't really know what Amazon Pay looks like, because I've never used it. but at Netlify, one of our reference customers was PayPal, and PayPal used this JAMstack architecture, and it had the full and basically the answer is an app shell, right? Like you statically render as much as possible, and then whatever is dynamic based on user or live updating data, then you would just dynamically render that. So it's a choice. It's not like either static or dynamic. It's like maybe 50% static, 50% dynamic, or 70% static or 30% dynamic, something like that. So you can really choose how much dynamic you really want to go, and I think that's a pretty cool trade-off to really think about. I would recommend the Google has a list of like 5 different levels of static versus dynamic. I'll try to dig that up because that's a very good chart to refer to.
Cool. We will pass to our audience too this one. Just wanted to understand what Amazon is doing on the static side. There are some pages on Amazon which can be static website, right?
Amazon.com.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Amazon.com. By the way, I just pasted in the chat that the table that I was talking about. This is the explanation about static versus dynamic from server rendering all the way to full client side rendering. So check that out. It's a very explanatory site. But yeah, I don't know anything about Amazon.com because I'm focused on AWS, and even AWS is very siloed. I only speak to my team and then maybe the serverless team, the AppSync team, Oh, I use AppSync a lot as well. I forget, like there's a lot of small services. And yeah, not right. Recently, we've been talking more to the video team, AWS Elemental, which helps you do video streaming. Which it turns out, so Elemental was a startup that AWS acquired, and it turns out it was very good timing because now the entire world needs video. Yeah.
Right. Okay. One last question we have from audience: which blog and website do you follow regularly for technical knowledge?
Ooh, so I'm mostly front endy. So I definitely follow CSS Tricks. I follow everything that the Google Developer Relations people put out because they really are innovating and putting out really good content, in general. So like, for example, there used to most recently there was Web.dev Live, which is like a online conference that replaced Google I/O because Google I/O got canceled. And all that stuff is really good for keeping up to date with like front end technology. In terms of back end or sort of full stacky stuff, I mostly have a lot of podcasts that I listen to. So I have a list of 250 podcasts that I listen to. I know. It's a lot, but a lot of them are like entertainment podcasts. But some of these are like tech. So I'm gonna drop my list on the chat as well. And Software Engineering Daily, I was a guest on there, but then I also listen every single day, and the host is now a friend of mine, which is pretty cool. React Podcast, Syntax FM, Full Stack Radio, Shop Talk Show. There's a lot. There's cloud stuff, there's AI ML stuff, there's even design podcasts that I listen to try to keep up on that. So I think education can take all forms, but I try to keep touch on, I try to focus on some areas and then keep tabs on like what's happening in other areas, just in case I need them in the future. Mostly podcasts. there's YouTube channels and other mediums as well. I think the best way to go deep on something though is books. So I always recommend to people, if you want to level up, if you're intermediate, you really need to read books from cover to cover, right? I have so many of these things, right? And just go through all of them. You can buy this for $30, and it's like hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of knowledge in there. You just have to take the time to go through it.
Cool, Sean. Seems like the books are from many publication.
I have others. It's just that yeah. I have like design stuff. I even have community books. So this one is good for community organizing because a lot of developer relations is about organizing communities around your company and project. So these are all things I'm interested in. I haven't read all of them, but I try to pick some up every now and then.
Yeah. Okay, Sean. These were the question from the audience. I think we overshoot the time by 8 minutes. So yeah, it was pretty good discussion. Thanks for joining us and on Friday evening and sharing your views on the static site generation and all that.
So whoever else is here, feel free to reach out to me with more questions. My alias. I think I think I prefer chat rather than email because I don't like email. But you can email me or you can find me on Twitter. That's twitter.com/Swix. And you can find more of my writing on Swix.io. That's my site, so I'll just write there as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's all from our side. Sean, do you have anything for us?
No, thanks for having me, and hopefully someday we'll meet in person. I think it's very nice to do like online meetups because I've done this with like Amsterdam, with like Egypt, with all sorts of different countries, and that's really cool. But like at the end of the day, it's not the same as meeting up in person. So hopefully someday we'll meet up when all this is over.
Definitely, we hope.
So I was just thinking, Kalpesh, if we can ask everybody on the channel to come on video so that we can take a picture.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. People, please come on video so we can have a nice screenshot.
Group photo.
Yeah.
Yes.
My internet connection is poor. I can't see Any faces?
Ellen says, okay.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, now I'm seeing some faces.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I'll click this one.
Yeah.
Smile, please.
See? Nice.
Yes.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
guys. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sean. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thanks for having me, and good luck. And this is great. I hope you do more of. I hope you do more of these.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Thank you, Sean. Before people, yeah, bye-bye. Before people you go, we have a small survey here. Please fill out that so we will know what we need to improve. So, yeah, I'm pasting the links here. Cool. Thank
All
you,
right.
Sean.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.